Today we've got a takeover episode. Wah, wah. This particular takeover is coming straight from a new podcast I've created called the Connect to Market Pod. And it's coming straight to you, straight to your ears. You don't even have to click on anything. Now, Connect to Market, what is this, Casey? It's a new pod, but it's also a community of marketing leaders. And if you like what you hear or you want to join the conversation, come on over. Head over to connecttomarket.com. Connecttomarket.com. All right, let's do this.
Find your, docs manager, director, that the person that leads the docs team. First of all, express your gratitude at everything they do, because oftentimes the most important marketing pages are actually documentation pages. They give our customers what they want, right? No BS. Here's how you get it done. But talk to them and say let's create an LLM's full.txt. That is the key unlock, I think, in 2025. And, in 2025, it'll be a differentiator. In 2027 or 2028, it'll be just table stakes. So get on it now.
Welcome to Connect to Market. I'm Casey Cheshire. Join us as we learn from marketing leaders who are driving founder-led growth. We're sponsored by Ringmaster, building B2B podcasts and communities to reconnect you with your audience. All right, I did. I hit the button, guys. We're on the way. The race has begun. Okay, I got to tell you about my guest today. He's an absolute badass. He has been in the community for quite a bit now, dedicated community member. Shout out to Connect to Market and everybody in the roundtable. You've probably been in a breakout session with him. And if not, you definitely want to try to find your way in. Hey, Paul, how do I get in a breakout session with this guy? I got to tell you about it. Entrepreneur, marketing leader, creative professional, lifelong coder. He's got the tech side, technical product marketing side. But listen, he is an expert when it comes to bridging the gap. He's got that sales, the marketing, the engineering, the product side, all kind of boiled in. It can really speak at all those different levels, even that high level, all the way down to that deepest technical level. Who knows what level we'll be at today, but he's literally been a pioneer in different spaces in the software world, helping launch the first software testing cloud. Talk about crazy. Senior Director, Product Solution and Partner Marketing, if that's even possible, at ZEDEDA. Al Sargent, welcome to the show.
Hey, Casey, good to be here.
Man, how do you do all those things? Can you get one more word into that title?
Yeah, it's the world's longest title for sure, but we do a lot and it's fun to do a lot. That's what I love about the job.
Dude, I'm glad you're here. I'm excited to learn from you. We've had a chance to prep a little bit, and all it did is got me excited. So when I was looking at the calendar this morning, I was like, all right, I can't wait to get into this. So what I'm going to do is I need to put on the giant blue foam finger of Connect to Market and ask you, Al, what is the number one thing that marketers need to do to connect to their market?
No pressure.
No pressure.
I love it. The number one thing I think in 2025 is, we're in a whole new world with how people are looking for vendors, how they're looking for solutions, and they're using chatbots, they're using AI, right? I mean, it's no surprise. Fastest growth from zero to billions of dollars in revenue, ChatGPT, and we now see that 90% of B2B buyers are now using generative, whatever you want to call it, generative answer engines, chatbots, LLMs, whatever you want to call these things that are, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, etc. They're using those to find the vendors, to understand the vendors, and to rank the vendors. And if you are not appearing prominently in these responses, it's as good as not appearing in Google. In fact, it's worse than not appearing in Google, because 1 out of 10 are using Google to do the searches, Google traditional search. 9 out of 10 are using these chatbots to do it. And the crazy thing is that I don't think a lot of marketing teams are really prepared on what to do here. A lot of them are just like, okay, they're still working in this, 2015 world of SEO, but they're not working in the 2025 world of GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. And that's a huge problem, right? And we need, as marketers, we need to get on this, because I think the technology has really kind of outpaced what we've done.
Yeah, GEO, man. like, how many of us are just sort of like trying to put our head in the sand and be like, maybe it'll go away if I don't deal with it, but that's not the case, right? This is only gonna grow even more.
Absolutely. It's gonna grow even more. It's so quick. Like well, so first of all, if you're not a marketer and you're not using, ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Claude or something, or all of them, at least once an hour, not once a week, not once a day, but once an hour, I think you're falling behind because you just need to understand what these things can do. And it's a fluency. It's a fluency in how you prompt, how you structure the prompts, subscribe to mailing lists or subscribe to, put it on your social media feed, your Instagram or whatever, to kind of just see these prompts right because it is a new language, right? And just like any language, you get better practice it. So you got to be using it like once an hour at least. And it could be just research, wherever you might have done a Google search, or you're curious about something, don't pop it into Google, pop it into your favorite, chatbot. I personally like Perplexity. It seems to work really well for, for these kinds of factual queries. I love Claude for creative stuff. If I'm trying to come up with some kind of new creative logo or t-shirt design, let's say, it's a great creative partner. But you start to understand, which models work well, which ones don't. ChatGPT 5 just came out. Be interesting to see kind of how well that works. And then selectively figure out what you want to subscribe to. They're not cheap, but figure out what you want to subscribe to, what your company might be willing to pay for, to support your efforts. But yeah, it's a whole new world, and you really just have to get going with getting on top of this and being used to using it. And then once you get used to using the technology as a consumer, then as a vendor, you can figure out, okay, how do we best appear in these prompts?
Yeah. I was just talking to someone and saying, we gotta show up in there and we gotta get some tracking. And I think the only way we've been able to tell is if you ask people, hey, where did you find out about us? And anecdotally, you're getting more and more people saying, oh yeah, I found you through, I was asking ChatGPT and you came up as a vendor. And so, man, how it's like it almost seems like another black box like Google, but at least with Google there was some history there. And how do you show up?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really is it's just like, I mean, if you go way back and, I've got a couple of years on me. So, yeah, if you go way back to, you know, the early 2000s and Google was a new thing and people were like, "Wait, do we really need to publish a blog? Why do we publish a blog?" And you're trying to explain SEO, and it really is sort of that, you know, 2025 for GEO is like 2000 with SEO. So one of the things is that, it's a partially overlapping circle with between SEO and GEO from what I've understood. And I'm no expert. I've just, I've read a few articles and try to put this in. So, but what it seems like is a lot of the stuff that you need to do for SEO will carry over to GEO, but it won't be enough. So, if you're a marketer, the first thing to do is just get smart on the 20 years of content that we've had, building out the SEO disciplines.
Can you summarize 20 years of SEO experience into like 3 sentences?
I would say align to queries. So I could do it in 3 words. Right. And so think about, okay, now let's unpack that a bit. You've got your personas, right? Who are your target, who are your target, what I would call your land personas, right? And those are probably the first ones. Think about your funnel, right? You're going to first land with someone who's just checking out. In the technical marketing space, that might be a developer, right? Who's looking you up. In this sort of, if a lot of software products are becoming AI products, so it might be a machine learning, an ML engineer, right? Or a data scientist. Okay, how do you land with them? They try something out. It's a classic pattern, right? We see this all the time. They try you out. They hit the limits of the free plan of the free trial. They start paying on their credit card. Their boss says, "Hey, why are you spending so much on this? Because it's really useful. Look what all the stuff I've been doing." Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should corporate credit card. And then the corporate credit card gets maxed out. And then you do an invoice for one team and then an invoice for multiple teams. And then before you know it, you have an enterprise license agreement, right? Classic land and expand. So you need to, ideally, figure out how to align to the queries of that land persona. Later you might want to try to land to the personas of the potential blockers or the potential approvers. So like someone in purchasing, like what is the ROI of insert your company name here or product name here, right? But you just I think one of the greatest qualities of marketing that is not stated um, is empathy. Just being able to step into the shoes of your customers, your users, your buyers, your blockers, right? And understand their not just sort of the rational aspect, but their visceral aspect. Um, I'm going to kind of go off on a bit of tangent, but a lot of time, what I see is with software, and we're in the business of selling not just the software itself. We're in the business of selling job promotions, right? Title promotions. People use your software, they complete some kind of project better, they get a promotion, they get a pay raise, they get a title raise, or both, right? And everyone's, people are trying to do that. They're trying to just, save up for their retirement, pay for their kids' college tuition or school tuition or whatever. We're trying to do that, right? And so they're going to be asking questions to sort of assess, can this product really kind of help me get ahead in my career? So whether you're doing SEO, back to the topic, whether you're doing SEO or whether you're doing GEO, you want to be able to align to those queries, Google searches, we call them, or LLM prompts.
So people to queries, and then but SEO will help you a little bit, but it won't be enough. Are there just some like down and dirty things you got to do to just make GEO happy, or is it a little
Yeah.
bit more complex than that? Like, how do you?
Absolutely. So what we're seeing is, so first of all, I would encourage, okay, just to put a bow on the SEO. So the SEO stuff, I mean, I like Backlinko, Backlinko. That's a great way for SEO. Neil Patel, MP Digital has a lot of great stuff on, in terms of SEO. SEMrush blog, right? Kind of classic stuff. And you'll see years of content. You'll see podcasts, all that. But okay, to answer your question, what is new? What seems to be the biggest thing, and I don't think the Brian Dean or the Neil Patel for GEO has emerged quite yet. It would be interesting to see when that happens. But in the meantime, I would really encourage everybody to look at something called LLMs.txt, LLMs.text. And what you can think of it is sort of the LLMs.text is to Geo what robots.txt is to SEO,
Okay.
right? So Google that or put that into ChatGPT, whichever you prefer. Try them both. Learn by doing. And what the interesting thing about it is, what we're seeing is that um, the these chatbots, these AIs, they really love to slurp in as much data as possible into what's called their context window. That's their working memory. Their context window. And the context windows are varying sizes, but the more information rich text that you can fit in there, the better. And so what we're hearing is that what's a really good idea, down and dirty, is to take your website or to take and your documentation and to put that on your website, um, available as a markdown file. And so markdown, right? We all know that format. It's plain text with a very basic markers of a heading, a subhead, and then also this is a code block. Um, but the thing is that kind of not compresses, but that strips out any kind of superfluous HTML, JavaScript, images, right? Anything like that, and it just gives what the LLM needs to build to basically update its weights and to be able to answer questions about your product. So the more that you can, really look at ways in which you can convert your web pages into markdown files, and then reference them out. And so the LLMs.txt file should basically go ahead and point to each one of those markdown files, right? And so a great thing to do is, and for a while I was like, okay, I've heard this LLMs.txt thing. It's really real. But it turns out that Anthropic, right, the makers of Claude, they know a thing or two about LLMs. They have LLMs.txt. So I think if you go to, I don't want to waste time for your viewers by checking it out right now, but I think if you go to anthropic.com and then LLMs.txt, you'll see their LLMs text file. And right. And then they went a step further, which is LLMs full. So LLMSFULL.txt. And what that is that's all their documentation for um, all their documentation sort of concatenated into one massive text file. It's a huge text file. And so what'll happen is their bot come along, slurp all that in, and now suddenly, rather than kind of having all these separate text files and different context windows, it has the whole thing fitting in the context window, and that allows it to answer a lot more questions better.
Wow. While you were describing that, I found it, Googling it, finds it, docs dot, and we'll put this in show notes for people to click through and check it out. Docs.anthropic.com, LLMS-full.txt. There it is. And it's speaking the magic language right there.
Yeah, exactly. Another key thing that I've learned that, again, you don't hear this that often, but I think, and I constantly tell my docs team, like, you are one of the most important people to our sales and marketing efforts, to our go-to-market efforts. And they'll like look at me kind of, what do you mean? I'm just writing documentation. I'm like, no. When we're selling, if our land user is the developer, what do developers care about? The marketing fluff, sure, but that's good. That's good to set context, but they really want to go deep. They got to get stuff done, right? They're trying to solve a problem. They're trying to get that promotion or that title bump, whatever. And so how do you do that? Well, it's documentation. And so the thing is that I would say partner, find your, docs manager, director, that the person that leads the docs team. First of all, express your gratitude at everything they do, because oftentimes the most important marketing pages are actually documentation pages. They give what they want, right? No BS. Here's how you get it done. But talk to them and say, like, let's create an LLM's full.txt. And again, there are tools to do this. We can link to them in the show notes. But that would be that is the key unlock, I think, in 2025. And, in 2025, it'll be a differentiator. In 2027 or 2028, it'll be just table stakes. So get on it now.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, just a little thing here and there to help out and grease the skids a little bit. Still doing your content, still doing your blogging. Do you change the way you blog any?
Yeah, like in a GEO world. Yeah. So another difference between SEO and GEO, as far as I can tell, is that with so SEO, it's all about the links, right? And you want to avoid competing with yourself for a keyword. And so, if you, let's say, so there are differences in terms of how you do it to sum up, but let's go ahead and explain. So with SEO, you want to, again, you don't want to compete against yourself where you're like both fighting for a keyword with, let's say, a blog post on your corporate blog and let's say the same content on your Substack, right? Or the same post on LinkedIn or something like that. But in GEO, it's not about the links and trying to, get up to those, top 5 link position. It's really just about what appears in the prompt. And so repetition is good. So if I were to say, so let me give you a simple example. There's an incredibly common phrase in the English language. And it's so common that even though you're not a mind reader, Casey, you're going to be able to complete the sentence for me. So if I say to be or not to
be, yeah,
exactly. Why do we know that? Because that's been repeated, tons and tons of times, right? And so the thing is that repetition, just like repetition is the mother of learning for human minds, repetition is the mother of learning for LLMs, right? And so if your content is up on your corporate blog, my theory, and I could be debunked on this, but my theory is that just like repetition is, so it's okay to put the same content on your corporate blog as it is to put on your Substack, put it on Medium, put it on LinkedIn. If it's on, I don't know, you do a long post on, let's say, Twitter, X, that's okay. Like that repetition is okay. You change it a little bit for the Medium or something like that. So it's not quite, so the LLM doesn't feel like you're quite doing a spray and pray. Like if I were an LLM engineer building the bot and if I saw the exact same content, I'm like, okay, this is content farming. But if you maybe tweak it a little bit, and of course you can use ChatGPT to do that or something like that, do a quick rewrite, But yeah, if you're to maybe put slightly different versions there, but still getting at the same point, I think that repetition could be a good thing for you to reinforce. So, for instance, if I were to say, so ZEDEDA, like we do an edge computing platform. So think computers in factory floors, container ships, retail stores to help use AI for AI powered cameras to do things like, look at, smart shelves, let's say in a retail store context, right? So that's what we do. So if I were to say, okay, how do I, if you're to go into ChatGPT and say, okay, how do I um, set up smart shelves in my retail store? What vendors should I consider and what are the pros and cons? So you've put out, let's say, 3 or 4 blog posts, one in your corporate blog, one on LinkedIn, one on Substack, one on Medium. Hell, maybe a fifth one answering some questions on Stack Overflow, right? Um, or Reddit, and then all of those kind of get slurped into the LLM. It's like, oh, hey, ZEDEDA is something. Seems like ZEDEDA keeps coming up here, for all these. And another key one, and this has been true both for SEO in the SEO world and the GEO world, but getting onto Wikipedia is key, and that's not easy because you need to be notable. You can't just they won't just let you throw up random articles. But if you can get on Wikipedia, then that's a great thing too. And maybe your customers ask one of your customer champions to, just write a little bit about you, and then you ask another customer to augment it, and then a third customer to flesh out even more. That that is great. But Wikipedia has really high domain authority. So domain authority, this is a term that's been around for 10, 15, 20 years in the SEO world. And if you look at just Google or ChatGPT, whatever, domain authority and put in wikipedia.com, it'll probably be, I haven't done it recently, but it should be like in the 90s on a scale of 0 to 100. I think for ZEDEDA, I think we're somewhere in the 30s, right? A lot of software vendors are kind of in the 30s as far as I can tell for domain authority. But the higher domain authority you are on which you are mentioned, the better off you're going to be. So look at the domain authorities for different sites, and there you go. And so a lot of these, so there's all these online outposts that are really key. So you think of G2, right? There's that online outpost. There's Product Hunt, right? Also has reviews. There's Gartner Peer Insights. There's Alternative 2. There's probably about 20 different review sites if you look at them. G2 is probably the most important, but take the time to get on to that, because again, that the LLMs look for these very high authority, high trust sites. And so the more that you can, and the reason they do that is because, they're not easy to get onto, right? They have gatekeepers. But the more that you can get on those, and get your content mentioned on there, the better. But it really starts with, I mean, the Monday morning action, if you will, is, meet with your docs person, convert your docs to an LLM's full .text, right? Put that on your website, and then and put that reference in your LLM's .text. So do all that. Make sure that your robots.txt welcomes chatbots from all the different. What we've done is we don't just not block the chatbots. What we'll do is we'll say ChatGPT bot, you can do anything. Allow ChatGPT bot everything. Allow Perplexity bot everything. Allow Claude bot everything. So we're rolling out the welcome mat in our robots.txt file, and this really matters because there's a lot of stuff in the past weeks where a lot of copyright holders are understandably saying, hey, we don't want these bots crawling our site because it's copywritten material and you're hurting our livelihood. But software vendors were the opposite. Hey, crawl our content. And so I think the LMs are they're constantly looking for stuff to index. So if they see something like, hey, we've got the welcome mat laid out for us. Okay, let's go in here and crawl the hell out of this, right? So get the docs going, get on the online outpost, and publish your blog in multiple places, get on the online outpost. And I think another key thing is again, content repurposing. And this is something where, again, this has been, Neil Patel talks about this continually. But it's surprising how little it's done. And, you put in all this effort to write a blog post. And I always think it's amazing. People put in all this effort to write a blog post and it publishes the corporate blog. And you're like, okay, well, what about put on the social, links to it on socials or put the whole thing on a LinkedIn post or maybe, adjusted, you got to fit a link or you've got basically the blog post. That's essentially a talk track for a YouTube video. Do a video on YouTube, then chop up the YouTube video, put it on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn videos, all the algorithms for all the social sites. They love video because it keeps you go on the site longer. And then once you have that, then take that, then go from video back to text and put that into the speaker notes for your YouTube, your Instagram, your TikTok. So just keep repurpose. And again, repetition, the LLMs love repetition like that. So that's another key thing to do, right? And if you have a bunch of YouTube videos, on your site, okay, great. Use AI to create the summary of that, put that into the speaker notes. Again, more stuff to crawl. I mean, one of Google's big advantages with Gemini is the fact that they've got repository, the biggest video repository in the world, YouTube, also, part of the Alphabet umbrella. And you can be pretty sure that Google's going to be using that to make sure that they make Gemini smarter and smarter. So anyway, a lot of tips there on what to do. And a lot of these actions it's not rocket science, just doing the work.
Yeah, it's a great point. It isn't always some magical thing. You're not necessarily doing rocket science. It just make sure you get that thing done, or make sure you don't accidentally block an LLM from, scraping your site. Like, I remember the old days where it was just like, just make sure you don't accidentally click that one default button that WordPress had that said like, prevent all bots from accessing your site.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why would you ever click that? But if you didn't know any better, you had someone on the team that didn't, that may be clicked right now for you, in which case, unclick that thing,
Exactly. So just go to, yourcompany.com/robots.text. Hopefully it's there. If it's not there, talk to your web team, get it there.
Would experiment. Yeah.
And in fact, if you go to, if people go to ZEDEDA.com/robots.text, we just set up ours and, it's a WordPress site and they can just take a look at what we've done in terms of rolling out the red carpet for different bots out there. So yeah, you can see GPT bot, ChatGPT, dash, user, and so on and so forth. And we just say allow : / and just to, that's us rolling out the welcome mat for all these. So,
well, I'm glad you had me do that because I found that I have a 20-second crawl delay to my robots.txt. Why do I have that on there? Let's get rid of that.
Yeah.
Weird. Where it is one of those things where like, let's go ahead and check this stuff out and make sure we don't have anything busted on there. Yeah. I wonder too. I almost wonder if SEO, Google and search engines have taken so much time they're like very mature in terms of weeding through people gaming them. It's like wizard chess to try to game that at this point. You just make good content, but maybe GEO's a little bit more immature with that. I wonder if they have the parameters to know any better, because to your point, I think repetition got a bad rap with SEO, just like, hey, what's the one source of truth? Make sure that gets all the link juice. That this is my, I don't want to repeat content too much or just in one place, but I hear you on GEO. It's kind of like, make sure that content's everywhere just in case that's the thing that gets crawled.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I'm sort of, we're all kind of figuring this out at this point, but I think that the key thing is to slightly vary it. I think, just kind of a guess. I'm just trying to step into the shoes of an engineer at OpenAI or somewhere like that. So it's not purely repeated, but largely repeated. And so, so it's a different mindset, right? We're not looking at the list of links. We're looking at getting in the answer. And then a couple more things is, is competitive comparison content, right? People are, again, if you're in this world of, B2B tech sales, and then conversely, you're looking to work with B2B vendors, you're going to want to compare them. And so understand that's the case. And so put out that comparative content. And I would also say, be as truthful and honest as possible, right? I mean, like, you don't want to get a reputation. I mean, if you start poisoning the results, people are like, how did that get in there? And like, oh, look at these guys. They put out this page with, tons of BS. Okay, you don't want to be that. People will save that screenshot and be like, look at these guys. You can't trust them. And then once your trust is gone, you're gone, right? You're out of the game. So, put out that honest but aggressively positioning content. Figure out that right balance, and then yeah, and put it out there. And it doesn't have to be a page. You don't need to put it. You don't need to link to it in your website that is viewed by humans. You don't need to put it into your menu. You don't need to even put it in your footer, but put it into your you know make sure that it is in your sitemap, right? So traditional search finds it, and make sure it's in your LLMs.txt so that the chatbots find. Because another thing they really like is they like tables, and they also like bullet points. So if you can do something in your markdown files where you could say, so in other words, let's say, you might say, to give an example, you might say, what, so again, with ZEDEDA, which continuous integration tools do you support? And what, kind of modern deployment tools do you support? Oh, we support Terraform, we support Rancher, we support this, we support that. And then you might say, okay, well, that's what we support. What about our competitors? What do they support? Competitor A, B, C, D. And then that all will fit into a nice table, right? And an LLM is going to see that structured data like ding, ding, ding. It's going to be, if it had emotions, it'd be like, this is gold, right? So they really like that kind of structured data that's out there. So, which is also another interesting thing. Like, there are like little micro formats for structured data, and that would be something sort of, in the future that I'll maybe spend some time looking at is, can these micro formats and say, like, this is company name, this is product name, this is capability. And I wonder if there are things like little minorly structured things that could be put into the markdown file that could be useful, right? Just to make it that much easier for the LLM to understand what's going on, the semantics of the text, right?
Yeah, I mean, so many things to think about and think, very practical and, just to your point, do the work. And, really my next question is like, who are you? How do you know these things? Can you take me back in time? Like little you growing up, did you know you were gonna be a, marketing leader, founding different companies, experimenting with the latest technology? What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, I always loved figuring out new systems, and so when I was a kid, I kind of a weird kid, man. When my parents would go out for a date night or whatever, I would be writing code on, imagine, a legal form, like go way back, those long legal pads, those yellow legal pads, and I'd be writing code to do video games, and of course, it'd be the kind of video game that you do when you're in 7th or 8th grade, a middle schooler, which would be a bird. It was sort of like, you remember the Minesweeper game where the boats would go across, you drop a mine, you try to have to hit something, right? I did a basically in it was all ASCII art. These are going back to Commodore. I think they were like PET computers. They didn't have 64K of memory. They had 32K of memory. So just way stripped down. Our school got them, I think, when I was in 5th grade. And so initially I'd kind of do, peeks and pokes and write a loop and just try to peek and poke and be like, oh, look at this. This makes the screen, this completely screws up the computer, makes the screen, all wobbly.
You're right.
And so I kind of logged that in my little notebook, like, oh, peak 2752 does this crazy thing. But eventually I started learning how to write BASIC. And so I wrote basically a version of Minesweeper, but instead of a Minesweeper dropping mines to hit submarines, there'd be a person at the bottom level, not a submarine, and a bird at the top level. And you probably know where this is going. The bird would be trying to poop on different people. And there was a very basic physics engine. So the this is really bad. It's going to be horrible going onto the internet. But basically, the droppings were basically basic physics engine. It would be going about half the speed as the bird flying across.
Interesting. So there's a little drag and it kind of slowed them down.
Drag going on. Yeah, exactly.
So you had to kind of predict where that drag would end up.
Exactly. A bird has a limited capacity as any, animal does, and so you'd have to get, before it'd be game over when you ran out. So anyway, that was the game, and it was pretty cool to kind of write that iterative loop and figure this all out.
That's cool. What language?
Basic.
Yeah, man, I remember doing basic apps too. Yeah.
So, what you do is what you do as a kid, and that was a lot of fun. And I guess in high school we didn't really, you kind of got, yeah, we had a little bit of Pascal programming, and so I didn't do a whole lot of programming. And then, um, got accepted to Stanford and started doing the computer science program there, and eventually switched to something called symbolic systems, which was 80% similar to computer science. But what it is, it rolled in, it was a little bit more broad than pure CS. And what it was doing was it was looking at what I would call frontier problems. And back in, the late 80s when I was going to college there, those frontier problems were things like neural networks, artificial intelligence. And it was sort of like, Dr. Evil, put in artificial intelligence, put in air quotes because people are like, what's that? Um, Computational linguistics, speech processing, graphical user interfaces. So it turned out that it was a great education because a lot of these things that were frontier problems back then are now, like part and parcel of what our industry. The web made GUIs, user interfaces that we were studying, and we were doing like, hey, maybe we should, to figure out this UI, maybe we should like, pull in, 5 users and watch them from behind and see how they can complete a task. And we're like, of course, now that's like, yeah, no kidding, Sherlock. Like this is exactly this is par for the course for decades now. But in AI, we built very simple neural networks to do optical character recognition, and then we were doing research. We would be degrading the bitmaps on these representing these different characters and saying, okay, how would the confidence factor degrade as you change different bitmaps? And so it was very much a nursery school level type of AI research that we were doing in 1991. But it was being done by these people who were very much at the forefront of things. And what we saw was even at that really basic level, these neural networks were really complicated black boxes. And so nowadays it's only grown in complexity, right? But it's a lot of the same things applied. So did that. Was able to had the opportunity to work at Xerox PARC, PARC, which was, for those who don't recall, it basically they invented the graphical user interface, and I think SRI down the street in Menlo Park invented the mouse, but they sort of pulled the mouse. Xerox PARC pulled the mouse into their into the GUIs, and then Xerox PARC, for those not familiar, they once invited this guy named Steve Jobs to take a look at what they were building. Steve looked with a lot of interest, and then of course he used that in the development, I guess, of the Lisa, and then later on the Macintosh. So just one of these sort of seminal places that and I think Ethernet might have got invented there. It was just like, Xerox PARC, SRI, AT&T, Bell Labs, like these places that just invented so much stuff that, and so it was really cool to do an internship there. And we built did a lot of programming in Lisp, which is used by a lot of early AI researchers, to build basically an online dictionary that was highly, highly compacted. So yeah, it was cool to see. It was also interesting to see how they couldn't commercialize any of these, things to actually, drive things forward. And now, of course, Xerox is a footnote. But so it showed both the importance of being inventive, but also the importance of commercializing the new technology. So they did that, and then ended up working in going to Oracle, work as a developer there. But one thing I always really enjoyed was sort of straddling these two worlds of the technical side and the business side. So I became a sales engineer at Oracle, or we call them sales consultant, where you're basically understanding the technology, but then conveying that to the customers and different type of customers. And you're right there, whether it's in business meetings or, at conferences, trade shows, on the trade show floor. And so you really understand at a ground level, like, or retail level, how do you, what works, what doesn't. And so it's great training for product marketing, and indeed, any kind of marketing where you're trying to understand how to persuade people. So
Dude, what a cool history, and I could see now why you'd be perfectly able to, like you had said, like, you go down to that deepest tech level, but then bubble it up to the senior level. What are we doing? What's the value here? How are we solving issues and growing our companies?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so key to be able to take those ground truth kernels of
Yeah.
technical facts and then be able to present them like, hey, this is why this
Right.
matters,
Yeah, the why that it matters too, not just here's something, but this is why you should
Mhm.
care about it. It's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah,
Um, Next
yeah,
question for you is a bit of a hypothetical question. Are you ready for this?
yeah. I
Okay.
sure.
See, I may or may not have a time machine here in New Hampshire. All right. So you
Okay.
come visit, event in Boston or something, drive a little bit north, and there you are. It's in the backyard covered in a tarp, right? So we go out back, we use this time machine, but it's a particular kind of time machine. And you get to go visit
Mhm.
yourself a couple
Mm.
days after getting that computer science, the symbolic systems degree, right?
Yeah.
And you get to go
Oh,
visit
interesting.
yourself, and it's been 4 days, you just graduated. What do you tell that
Mm.
guy?
I would say rather than take 3 weeks to go on vacation after school, take 3 months and travel Europe or somewhere you haven't been to. I mean, I had not at the time, I had not been outside of the US or Canada. And so, so I think that, so I did a bike trip down the coast,
Oh,
down the California
sick.
coast, and that was pretty fun and, beautiful area. So do that, but then hop on a plane and go travel because, when you're at that stage, it's a unique time in your life when you kind of don't really have any obligations. No one's going to
Nothing.
care if you took yeah, right? If you took 3 months to do that, great. No one's gonna be like, "Oh, what were you doing, you slacker?" It's like, "No, no." Yeah, so, uh,
Yeah.
literally 4 days, that would be the
Alright.
thing.
Do
Yeah,
you think,
yeah.
that version of you would listen to you?
Uh, yeah, I think so. I think so. It takes some persuading, but yeah, I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah,
Go
go
do
do
it,
it.
man.
Go
Just a
do
little
it." You
encouragement,
know?
right, to go do
Yeah,
it, kind of thing might have
yeah,
just
yeah. You'd also say, "What the hell happened to all
right?
your hair?" But
Right? Well, having done computer science myself, it was the math classes that is how I lost my hair, so, may
yeah,
have been the same for
indeed.
you, I don't know. Um, Dude, this is
Yeah,
great. Where can people connect with you? In the community, outside the community? Chat a little bit, talk more
yeah,
geo? Have a where do they go?
for sure. Hit me up on LinkedIn and but So I'm just Al Sargent on LinkedIn. I try to do Al Sargent on most of the socials, be it GitHub or Twitter or you know what have you.
Yeah,
But yeah, do that. But a key thing I get so many sort of flooded with LinkedIn connection requests. So
totally.
please say, hey, I heard about you on the Connect to Market podcast. So I know it's not just some rando, but it's a real person who wants to learn more. Yeah, happy to help. I mean, at this stage, I really just enjoy helping people, mentoring, as you've seen going, with all the Connect to Market
Yeah,
sessions that we do, which are phenomenal. Just love helping people, and
yeah,
I think at the end of the day, I think at the end of one's you know career, one's life, it's all about how many people you've helped. And so,
yeah,
yeah, I had a dear aunt, and at her funeral, she um she and her late husband were on the board of this really cool thing in mountains above Santa Cruz, which is this railway, this steam railway, and kids absolutely love it. This you go on a steam train, and
nice.
they just kind of go out and back through the redwoods. It's really cool. If anyone has younger kids, Roaring Camp Railroad is the thing. But she and my uncle had done like that, and for decades, she had also knitted tons of Christmas stockings for people, hand knitted. And so at her celebration of life, there were like 1,000 people in the hall, celebration hall, and everyone was like, "How many people here have gone to or have taken their kids to or grandkids to, Roaring Camp?" You know, half the room goes up. How many of you have a knitted stocking? And a quarter of the room goes up. That's a lot of stockings. That's a lot of knitting, right? And so at the end, I
Yeah,
think that's how people like make their mark in the world is how are you able to mentor? How are you able to teach? And so anyway, long-winded way of saying, uh, if people have questions, hit me up and I'll see what I can do.
Damn, that's awesome, man. What a legacy to leave, a room full of people who've all been impacted. Physical items and also the stories and the experiences they've shared.
Yeah.
Dude, this has been great. I would say
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on here. Looking back through all this conversation, man, we dove deep into GEO. We contrasted, talked a little bit of empathy, aligning to the queries, all the things. But man, LLMS.text, let's go. We're gonna get on that. So thank you for coming on here. I feel like this is like a masterclass.
Yeah. No worries. Happy to help, man. As always. Thanks for having me, Casey.
Yeah, dude. And for those listening, if you learned something, I freaking know you did because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back.
Awesome.
Then share this with someone, right?
Yeah.
In fact, everyone at this point, this is so cutting edge. Everyone needs to hear this. So do share it with 9,000 people, just not your enemies because they're going to do it too. But no, share this whenever. Let's get those text files out there. Let's start thinking about content so we get discovered with the chatbots these days. And with that, Hal, thank you again, sir.
My pleasure, Casey.
All right, everyone. This has been a crazy cool, very exciting episode of the Connect to Market Pod. We will see you all next time. And that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at connecttomarket.com. Connect to Market is sponsored by Ringmaster, creating podcasts and communities that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth.